good morning, Tribe Church. We miss you guys a lot. We'll be together soon, but let's worship together. Amen.
We're heaven-spun creations, His pride and adorations, treasures woven by His love. His careful hands, they hold us safe within His promise of calling and of destiny. We're heaven-spun creations, His pride and adoration, treasures woven by His love. His careful hands, they hold us safe within His promise, calling and of destiny.
Well, sing this out.
And I will sing of all you've done, and I'll remember how far you carried me from beginning until the end. 'Cause you are faithful, faithful to the end. A father's heart that's for me, a never-ending story, love that's always chasing me. His kindness overwhelming, hope for me unending, He's never given up on me.
And I will sing.
And I will sing of all you've done, and I'll remember how far you carried me from beginning until the end. 'Cause you are faithful, faithful to the end. And I will sing of all you've done, and I remember how far you carried me from beginning until the end. 'Cause you are faithful, faithful to the end. And until the end. Until the end. Until the end.
Come on, sing. There won't be a day.
There wasn't a day that you weren't by my side. There wasn't a day that you let me fall. In all of my life, your love has been true. So with all of my life, I will worship you. There wasn't a day that you weren't by my side. There wasn't a day that you let me fall. In all of my life, your love has been true. So with all of my life, I will worship you.
Well, we're just going to keep singing and worshiping together this morning. He's faithful. Amen. Sing before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed a life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn, I don't deserve, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. See, when I was your foe, when I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. We'll sing this out. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Sing this out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on, sing this out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Come on. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, and still you give yourself away. And all the overwhelming,
Good morning, Tribe. I have your announcements for today. So Tribe groups start up the week of October 12th. The week of October 12th, we're going to bring Tribe groups back. And if you're interested in being a Tribe Church group leader, we're going to have a training. It's going to be Saturday, October 10th at 10 a.m. Saturday, October 10th at 10 a.m. And we'll give you all the information. And you don't have to be a Bible expert. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to open up your home, be willing to meet with people, and be a friendly face. That's really all that's required. And we'll give you all the rest of the information that you may need October 10th at 10 a.m. And you can text, if you want more information, the word leader to the number you see on the screen, the word leader to the number you see on the screen to be part of that. Once again, this is time for your Social 30. Please reach out to somebody. Let them know that you care about them. Let them know that you're watching alongside of them and that we'll be seeing them soon.
Well, good morning, Tribe Church. We are in our third week of our Asking for a Friend series. I kicked this series off a couple weeks ago with the question, how do I find my spiritual gifts? And how do spiritual gifts even work? And all of that. And last week, Pastor Matt knocked it out of the park with his sermon on heaven. When we asked y'all for your questions for this series, over half of the questions that we got were about heaven. And so I was like, Matt, you need to tackle that because clearly people are so interested in this. And I thought he just did an amazing job on that sermon. If you have missed any of the sermons in this series, I highly recommend you go and back and watch them. You can do that on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer two different questions that you asked for a friend. Okay, so I can't wink. But what I can do is answer two of your questions with one answer, and I think that's pretty cool. The first one is a tough one because I think it's one that we've all felt at one point or another in our lives. We felt it on kind of like a deep level, but I don't think a lot of us are actually brave enough to speak this question out loud. And that question is, where is God when I'm miserable? I'm trying to live my life the way I'm supposed to. I'm trying to do the things that I'm supposed to do, and I'm still miserable. And I'm not talking about had a bad day level miserable. I'm talking more about had a bad decade level miserable. And the simple answer to this question is found in Romans 12:15. And here Paul encourages us to rejoice with those who rejoice and to mourn with those who mourn. Paul is encouraging us to do what Jesus did when his friends were feeling big feelings here on earth, and that is to feel those feelings with them. The shortest verse in the Bible is John 11:35, and it's just Jesus wept. When Lazarus died, Jesus got to Mary and Martha. He was away from them at the time, and they kept saying hey, things are getting really bad. He's really sick, and he kept kind of putting it off, and he finally, Lazarus dies, and so Jesus has to travel back to Mary and Martha knowing that their friend, his very close friend, is dead. And when he gets there, he sees them mourning over their brother, and even though he knew that he was going to bring him back to life and that ultimately that performing that specific miracle is going to set off a movement that ultimately leads to his own death on the cross and resurrection, Jesus wept. He mourned with those who mourned. So where is God when you're miserable? He is right there with you, and he is miserable too. Even though he knows what's ahead, even though he knows how the story ends, God mourns with those who mourn, and he rejoices with those who rejoice too. And I don't think the person who asked this question for their friend, right, not necessarily for them, but for their friend, was actually questioning where God is when you're miserable. I think they know that he's right there. I think they can feel him. I think they long for him. And I know that you do too when you're miserable. And so I think the real question that they're asking for their friend is, what do I do when I'm miserable? And not just like having a bad day level miserable, but like having a bad decade level miserable, like death on death on death on death, like job failure, not job loss, but job failure, the loss of a marriage or another really important relationship, financial ruin, wrecked credit, homelessness, a health nightmare, or some horrible little cocktail of several of these things. I'm talking that kind of miserable. And what's interesting about the answer to that question is that it's the same answer to this question that I'm about to share with you, even though the two questions could not be more different. And the answer is found in Romans 12 as well. Like, how cool is that? How cool is God? Like, as I have been writing this sermon the last week or so, I have seen so many different connections of just God connecting the dots between all of these different things. And I thought it was so cool that the verses that I wanted to use for both of this was found in Romans 12. Because, y'all, I love it when a plan comes together. And before we go any further, I do want to acknowledge that if you are experiencing this kind of ministry, in addition to what I'm about to say, you might also want to seek professional help from a licensed counselor. And at Tribe Church, we would recommend that is a Christian licensed counselor. Now, full disclosure, when I share the other question, I know that, and I share the answer, I know that it's going to pop up like 27 brand new questions in your head. And I've done my best at the end of this sermon to anticipate those questions and to answer them. So, the second question is, as I am growing my faith, and maybe even in my years, but as I'm growing in my faith, how do I explore Christianity for myself? I told you that these don't really seem like they're going to go together, but they do, because what do I do when I'm really, really miserable, and how do I explore Christianity for myself? Like, how do I make my faith my own? Not the faith of my parents or my grandparents or my favorite aunt or whatever growing up. Like, how does my faith become my faith? And the answer to both of those questions is you join a tribe group. Romans 12, 9 through 13 says this: "Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal, but be fervent in the spirit and serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality." And the overarching principle of this group of verses is, don't do life alone. Let your love be genuine. Love each other with brotherly affection. Show honor. Be happy in the Spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Pray. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Serve the needs of the people around you, and show hospitality. Invite people over to your house. Look at the order of this verse. Love each other. Be happy in the Spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Serve other people and invite other people over to your house. Show hospitality. Hang out with them. Share meals together. Shauna Niequist, in her book Bread and Wine, says this: "The people in our culture are starving for nourishment and to be nurtured. The table is a really good place for that. It's creating and holding sacred space for God's voice to be heard and for people to be seen and known." The people in our culture were starving for nourishment and to be nurtured, and then a global pandemic shut down the world and left most of us reeling and spinning, and some of us lonely and hurting. And if you're like Adam and Chrissy Corbin, who shared their incredible 2020 testimony with us 2 weeks ago, this year has not left you reeling and spinning, that's great. Start a life group. Rejoice in your hope. Serve the Lord. Serve people. Show hospitality, because people are starving for nourishment and to be nurtured, and you just might be the person that's equipped to do that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Don't do life alone. When you're miserable, don't do life alone. When you want to grow in your faith and find out what you really believe, don't do life alone. Jesus demonstrated this for us with his life on earth. He had 6 groups of people that he surrounded himself with his entire adult ministry. This theory is sometimes called the circles of Christ. And if this is something that really interests you or really pops with you right now, I highly recommend you write it down somewhere, because if you remember kind of the general idea, but you forget what it's called, it is a really, really hard thing to Google, okay? But it's called the circles of Christ. And each circle, the circles start out big, but they get smaller and smaller as the relationships grow richer and closer. And so the largest circle was called the crowds. The crowds are the least intimate relationship that Jesus had. These are the people who followed him, literally followed him, went to the places that he went. They didn't necessarily follow his teachings or think that he was the Son of God, but they were there and they were influenced by him. For Jesus, this number might have been in the 10,000s. For us, I think it's your Facebook friends, your Instagram followers, your Snapchatters, your TikTok people. These are the people who are sort of vaguely aware of you, but they're not actually privy to the intimate details of your life. And the next smaller circle, kind of the best of those followers, became part of what we call the 5,000. These were the people who followed Jesus to the places of healing and teaching that he did. These were the ones that he fed with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. They were true observers of Jesus. These were people who got to see him up close and personally. For us, this is the people who we interact with on a daily basis. The clerk at the grocery store, your child's teachers, your actual neighbors, the people who live in your actual neighborhood next to your house, the fellow parents that you sit with while your kid does the sports ball. That's this group of people for us, possibly your coworkers or other people that you just sort of interact with, but you don't really have much of a relationship with those people. The next smaller circle is the 70. From that group of observers came a group of participators. These are the people who started putting Jesus' words into practice. These are the women who bankrolled his ministry, and we're going to preach about that someday. Don't worry about that. For us, this is Tribe Church. That's your 70. We hope that we have more than 70, but we'll settle for 70 right now. These are the people who recognize you, and this is starting to be a group of people who you actually count on in your life. Maybe they brought you a meal after surgery, or you work together in Tribe Kids, or maybe back when we were a portable church, you put a sign together, or they showed up and helped you move. We are your 70. Welcome to the tribe. Congratulations. We love you already. But here's the problem, folks. I think a lot of people stop at 3 circles. They have the crowds, they have the 5,000, they have the 70, and they never go any further, which means they never get any deeper with anybody. And folks, it's called Tribe Church for a reason. We could have called it One Love Church. We could have called it Recreate Church. We could have called it Ecclesia Church, which I was actually in favor of. And those are just the first 3 names at www.coolchurchnames.com, which we did actually use when we came up with the name Tribe. But we didn't call this church those names or any of the other names that we considered. We called it Tribe. Because whether you call it a soul squad or a grace gang or a praise pack or a small group or a life group or a tribe group, whatever you call it, you need one. Jesus' next most intimate circle was called the 12. These were his guys. These were his homies, his band of brothers. These were the people who he did life with, who slept where he slept and ate what he ate. These were the ones that he laughed with and cried with and joked with and literally walked with. They were some of his most intimate relationships that he had. For us, your 12 is your tribe group. Yeah, a bunch of people might show up at your birthday parade, but only a handful of them are going to know like your favorite cake. Or if you're Matt Dilley, the fact that you don't like cake. I am legally bound to this person for the rest of my life. It's really hard, you guys. Your tribe group is an incredibly important group of people in your life, but this is not the closest circle, because within those 12 that he was closest to, Jesus had an even smaller circle, and we call this circle the cabinet of 3. Yeah, you've got your like group text with your whole tribe group. Yeah, that's got the whole gang on there. Yes, you've got that. But there's another text thread that's smaller. Where you can be a little bit more real, where you can let your hair down just a little bit more. And this is not a slam against the rest of the group, but rather it's a more intimate relationship than you can have with 12 other people. For us, for Matt and I, this relationship looks different on different days of the week or at different times of the year. Sometimes our cabinet of 3 is the 2 people who were our first call. I'm going to get emotional. When things went south at our previous church. The people who have been next to us throughout this entire process of taking Tribe from an idea that we talked about in their driveway to the building that you see right now. Sometimes it's the people that we live with. It's Jackson and Bailey. Sometimes they're our cabinet of 3. And sometimes it's my parents who have turned into a sounding board and confidants for Matt and I. Yes, you can absolutely count on your 12, but you can count on your 3 in a totally different and more intimate way. And your smallest circle is the 1. And anyone who's heard one of our sermons on marriage knows that God needs to be number 1 in your life, and your spouse is your number 2. But for the purposes of this metaphor, we're going to talk about just the 1. We're going to call that person the 1, because these are earthly relationships. This is your smallest circle, your most intimate and important relationship. This is the person who's next to you the most, the person who is part of every one of those other circles. They're part of your cabinet of 3, and they're part of your circle, your tribe group circle of 12, and they're part of your church. They're part of the 70. They're part of the 5,000. They're part of the crowd. They're part of all of those. If you are unmarried, this could be any number of people, but if you are married, this should be your spouse. Unmarried people, this could be a parent, a friend. Please avoid putting a child in this role, even if that kid is the only person that you really feel like can fill that role. That's a lot of pressure to be your 1 for a little kid. So please be careful with that. Just make sure that whoever is your 1, that you're their 1 too. That's really important. Jesus had all of these relationships. He had 6 circles filled with people, and you need it too. Especially when you're miserable, you need to surround yourself with people who love God and are seeking to honor him with their life. You need people who you can call on and who will be there for you. And I hope you're able to find it here. And if you need these people, and you need these people also to help transfer you from the faith of your family to a personal relationship with God. I remember when I was in college, this was a really transitional time for me and my faith, when going to church and reading my Bible and studying with other Christians went from being a parental expectation to a personal choice. That was a really powerful time in my life, and I couldn't have done it without my 12 at that time. But the mistake that I made was that none of my 12 at that time, became part of my cabinet of 3, which is why I think that I don't have any of those people in my life anymore. My 12 from college are now part of my crowd. Romans 12 tells us not to do life alone, to fill up our circles. And if you don't know where to start, just start by praying that God would guide you to the next most intimate circle. That if you've got a crowd, okay, that's a great place to start. Find your 5,000, find your 70, like join the tribe, join a tribe group, whatever the next most intimate circle is, like seek to fill that. And now that I have you totally sold on the idea of tribe groups, you probably have a bunch of questions about tribe groups. So here we go. Number one, what does it take to be a tribe group? Tribe groups have to do one of the following. They have to pray, they have to study, they have to fellowship. It has to be one of those three things, and you're good to go. You can always do all three of them. You can do just two of them or something, but it's got to have those things in it. How do I join a tribe group? On Sunday, October 4th, we are going to release a list of tribe groups that we are going to be offering for the fall semester here at Tribe. How many tribe groups can I join? You can join as many tribe groups as you want. If more than one strikes your fancy, like, give it a try. That would be great. And then the next question is always like, hey, do you guys have a tribe group on blah, 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 blah. And the answer is maybe. Like, you'll have to check out our list when we release it on October 4th. If you don't see a group that you like, maybe just invent one. You want to have a group on motorcycles? Sure. You want one for if you want one for moms of young kids, you got it. You want one that's just guys who want to pray together and then play basketball once a week? Yes, let's do it. You want one to go in like a really in-depth study on the life of the Apostle Peter? That sounds awesome. You heard that quote earlier from Shauna Niequist, and you're like, bread and wine sounds like a book I need to be reading. Sign me up. You want to do one on underwater basket weaving? Why not? Let's do it. I love it. Who can lead a life group? Anyone who attends our life group leader training on Saturday, October 10th at 10 a.m. Can sign up to be is a life group leader. So if you want to be a life group leader, then that's what you need to do. Depending on the nature of your group, we may background check you. If that insults you, I apologize. Like, that's just kind of the way things are in the world in the year 2020. What is an open group or a closed group? Some people get caught up on those terms, like you might see that on the list. Anyone can join an open group. Closed groups are by invitation only. Sometimes it's a group of people who have been a life group before and they want to be a life group again, and they don't want to add anybody to their group. They already have their 12 and they don't want to add like 14 or 16 or 18 or whatever, and that's kind of their prerogative, and we support that here at Tribe. Maybe it's a group of people who want to be a little exclusive. That's fine. Sometimes it's a group of people who are kind of gathering around someone who's going through something really vulnerable, and they need to be protected by their 12, and so it's a closed group. And some groups do have kind of restrictions on them, like you can't join the young moms group if you're not a young mom. That's creepy. Like, don't do that. Or you can't join the motorcycle group if you don't have a motorcycle and you have no interest in motorcycles. Like, find a different group. And so that kind of, and I hope that answers the question of like, what's an open group and what's a closed group. How often do groups meet? That's really up to the leaders. Some meet weekly, some meet bi-weekly, some even meet just like once a month or like once a quarter or whatever. Where do groups meet? Again, that totally depends. Like, some meet in homes, some meet in restaurants, some may even decide this time to meet on a Zoom call. Eventually, some are going to even be able to meet here at the church. Like, that would be awesome, right? What do I do if I join a group and it's just not a good fit? And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you join a group and it's just not for you. We get it. It happens. That's why we have polite on-ramps and off-ramps. We have like semesters of groups. I'll talk about that in my next question. But like, we encourage you to stick with your group for the remainder of your semester and then try a different group the next time. And now you're like, well, what do you mean semesters? Like, when do we offer a group? So typically we run it a lot like school. Like, we have a fall semester, and then we kind of take a break around the winter, and then we have like a spring semester that usually starts in like January or February. Depending upon, if we have a really rough winter, we may sometimes we start a little bit later. Like, it just kind of depends. This year we didn't have a summer session because COVID and permits and everything was so hard, but a lot of times we will offer like a shortened summer session as well. I'm sold. When do groups start? Groups officially kick off the week of October 12th. Please, please, please don't do life alone. Tribe wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a life group called The Apartment that met bi-weekly 4 years ago. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, Pastor Carrie, we just don't have time, maybe it's time to rearrange your life so that you do. Maybe it's time to give up something that isn't giving you life and replace it with something that will help you grow in your faith, something that will help make you less miserable. Folks, in the year 2020, we have been given something that no society no generation has ever been given, like, as a society. We have been given the chance to start over. Many of us have been through something that feels like a wildfire this year, a fire that came in and felt uncontrollable. It ripped things out of our lives, and we felt empty without a sense of control that we used to have. Because that's what a wildfire does, right? It comes in and it takes and it takes and it takes with no sense of purpose. It doesn't discriminate. It just burns. It burns everything, the good and the bad. And it leaves us feeling desolate and abandoned and alone. But what if what we experienced this year wasn't a wildfire? What if it was a controlled fire, one set on purpose to restore an ecosystem's health, a way to prepare for new vegetation to grow? What if the fire that's been 2020 was really giving us a chance to see what's really important in our lives and what we can live without? To the people who are looking to grow their faith, from the faith of their parents to a personal relationship with God, join a tribe group. Reflect and debate with like-minded Christians. Read and study the Bible. Find people who will hold you accountable. Find your 12 and your 3 and maybe even your 1. And to the people who are asking, where is God? When I'm miserable, I offer the same advice. Find your 12 and your 3 and your 1. And I also want to give you this verse from Psalm 13. This is the word of the Lord. It is absolutely true, and it is given to us in love. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, day after day, have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God, give light to my eyes and my ears, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him. My foes will rejoice when I fall, but I still trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing of the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. Let's pray. God, I thank you for community. I thank you for this group of people that we call Tribe. I thank you for the growth that we have seen over the last year, over the last 2 years, and for the growth that is to come in the future. God, I thank you for holy and cleansing fire that has swept through our nation this year. And I pray that you would help our people to see what is truly, truly important in their lives and to zero in on those things. God, bring us leaders. Bring people to lead our people over the next semester. Bring groups that are life-giving, life-affirming, that are awesome, that just make people feel so much better about where they're at in life. God, bring us people to fill up these groups so that we can continue to push out your good message of love and joy here in the town of Plainfield. We love you, God, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. And like we say every week here at Tribe, as you head out into your week, please remember that love is the best thing we do.
Good morning, Tribe. I have your announcements.
Is this camera on?
Yeah. Well, now you have me double checking. Yes, what a waste of time. Should have trusted my instincts.